nor does it advance any concepts of supernatural revelation. Jesus shows them that there is indeed life after death, and he wishes them peace. Is it not enough for the sincere soul who is seeking integration with the higher realms? Are not the mere facts of acknowledging the afterlife and the certainty that you will be held accountable for your acts enough responsibility? To work and to suffer are the logical processes of spiritual evolution and ascension. That we may abide by these imperatives of the law with sufficient peace is the loving and pure desire of Jesus Christ. Let us make an effort to understand such truths, because there are many followers who are waiting for some extraordinary sign. They are like lazy individuals resting in the shade as they wait for the night fire of least effort.
Okay, friends. So let's close our eyes. Lord, open we pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity of being here in person, among friends, to do our study tonight. Please bless our dear friend Marcelo, that's going to make the lecture, and all of us, so we can make the most of this moment so rare in these days. Extend your love to everyone that's at home, connected to the internet. Help the connection and help us tonight to be able to have a good study. So be it. So tonight we will have our friend Marcelo, which is the president of the Sociedade Espírita Renascer in Connecticut, and a dear friend from Inner Enlightenment, and all of us already know him as well. Right? Welcome, Marcelo.
Thank you very much.
We are having, as I mentioned, we are streaming through Zoom and YouTube and Facebook. So save your questions to the end if you're online, and we will make sure to read and have the usual Q&A at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. First, again, thank you everyone for the invitation. It's a very special moment. I think there are several things for us to be happy about. One, the Spirit Center just opened, and the anniversary of the IESS, and we all know how much work requires to keep the Spirit Center open. A lot of work outside on our hands, but also a lot of work inside. As much as we read, as much as we get to know about the truth, more we realize how much we need to work inside of ourselves. So a lot to celebrate, and one more time, today, and we ask the Spirit realm to help us, to guide us in our reflection. And today, we're going to be reflecting about the two virtues that's very, very important for our evolution, for us to achieve happiness. One is meek and peacemaker. These two passages, it's on the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, on the chapter 9. That's all we're going to bring here today. It's going to be about that chapter. We're going to be reading and we're going to reflect, but also bring this information to our heart. It's going to help us to get to know ourselves and what we should do in order to improve. So the two passages we can find on the Beatitudes. So Kardec just brought these two and started to dive more into them. So one is, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. It's in Matthew. And the second one, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And then, let's first understand, what is meek? What does it mean? So the definition is enduring injury with patience and without resentment. So around these two virtues, there are a lot of other virtues that are around them, so like satellites, that it makes a lot of virtues in order to have that action, to be a peacemaker and to be neat. The definition of peacemaker is one who makes peace, especially by reconciling parties at variance. So now we're going to start to go deeper. Why Jesus said that it's so important. So right in the beginning of the chapter, Kardec brings this part here. That he says, through this mask, Jesus has made law of meekness, moderation, gentleness, affability, patience. That therefore condemns violence, anger, and even all derogatory expression towards one's fellow human beings. So when they don't have, here's the virtues of the top, and here's when we don't have, when we lack of those virtues, the way they're gonna act. But he said one thing he's important. He made a law. So what does it mean, the law? On the Spirit's book, I know we look at so many times, but it's important to reflect again now, not only the knowledge itself, but how are we doing? How are our actions based on? He says that natural law is the law of God. It's the only law that's truly necessary for a human being to be happy. The only one. And then it says, if it shows them what we should do or not do, and they only suffer misfortune when they depart from it. Okay. So the only way for us to achieve happiness, the only way, if we follow the nature laws. So it's important for, as much as I love myself, as much I'm going to study about the laws, get in contact with the laws that's in our conscience, and before we act, really think, am I acting according to the nature laws? If not, we should step out a little bit, reflect, change the plan until we be able to align our action with the nature laws. But sometimes we're running so crazy in our life that we don't stop and think before we act. So it's important for all of us. And by the way, I'm talking, I'm listening to you too, okay? And then he brings now the opposite, when we lack of love. So offense speech is the expression of the feeling contrary of the law of loving and charity. So offense speech goes against the law. So if I go against the law, I'm not going to achieve my happiness. Which must regulate a relationship of humans and keep harmony and union among them. Furthermore, such feeling is an attack on mutual benevolence and fraternity, and it's maintained hatred and animosity. And now, just an invitation for all of us. How well is or has been our relationship with others? With those that I like, but also with those that I still don't have such a connection. Because regardless, we should exercise this harmony. So our speech should be in line with the law, with love. And he continues.
Marcelo,
Sure. What does Jesus mean by these words? Blessed are the meek, and they shall inherit the earth, in which he recommends renouncing the goods of this world and promise those of heaven. So, and then Kardec will look at these statements and start to, what does it mean? What Jesus mean about it? Should we give up all the material things and just looking at how we're going to live in heaven? And that's no. We are on the spirit. We are in the world that's material world. So we need material. We needed to eat. No, we needed the material around us for us to live here. But what he says is the priority. Don't put the material above our virtues. Our focus should be, okay, let's develop our virtues, improve ourselves, and the material as a secondary. So we don't compromise our values because of the material things. That's one piece. So we should invest more in developing virtues than acquiring matters. And then he mentioned, in the future, this earth, this world, is going to be for the people, for the meek, for the peacemakers. Now, another question for ourselves. Am I preparing myself to be in this world? Am I developed to be a peacemaker or not? Those are questions. And the good thing is the responsibility. It's on us. Does not depend on others, only depend on us. If we want to stay in the spirit on earth, as the earth is going to evolve. And then, now here's the instructions of the spirits. He says, talking about another, virtues. He talks about affability and meekness. Kindness towards others, fruit of love of your neighbor, produce affability and meekness, which are its manifestation. So the question here, the spirits bring to us. So what should I do in order to develop meekness, to produce, to develop ourselves affability? And he says, be kind with others. Practice kindness. And then we're talking about our relationship. We're talking about, a couple of things. So be kind in our relationship, one to the other. For those that we have a connection already through love, and those that we still develop them, but acting with kindness will develop. It's a law. It's a law. It will happen. If we practice, it will happen. And then also he mentioned, like a heads up for all of us. Do not always trust appearance. Education and the use of the word can give one either of these qualities. The world is full of people that have a smile on their lips, but venom in their heart. So here, the spirits just alert us, not because the outside, the appearance for outside, that it means that the person is kind. Okay, so now let's look at two scenarios. One scenario, what if, for lack of knowledge or for whatever the case may be, we are acting like that? If we act like that, are we going to really develop the virtues here? No. So who's going to be losing? Who's going to lose the opportunity to grow? Is the other person or us? We can lose. It's nothing to do with the other person. And sometimes we could, I'm not saying that we are, but we could use to manipulate others, to get the other to follow us. But now, knowing that, okay, I can manipulate one person, but are we going to manipulate, God? Are we going to manipulate our own conscience? Well, we're not. So, but of course, kindness is not going to appear. Of course, we're developing the virtues, but truly inside of us, we do our best to really be kind. Because now, in my case, now I am developing the virtues. And I know it's a matter of time, of ability, of with a feeling, and I know that will really be developed. So, again, as much as we love ourselves, as much as we wanted to produce those type of virtues inside of us. We already have the seeds, we just need to exercise so these seeds can grow. And then it talks about patience. Pain is a blessing. Look at this statement. There's two statements. I think I look at this statement several times, but let's read and reflect together. Pain is a blessing that God sends to its elect. Therefore, do not grieve when you suffer, but on the contrary, bless the our God who has marked with pain here below for work in heaven. It's to forgive those who God has placed in your way, to be the instrument of our suffering, and to put our patience to the test. Life is difficult. I know it. That's a friendly issue. Pain is a blessing. It's not that we want to, hurt ourselves, but when challenge comes in our life, that's our opportunity to develop those virtues. And that's why he said, well, you should bless, you should say, thank you, God, you made this person from me in my life. Now I have opportunity to grow. And that's why, we have a different relationship sometimes at home, sometimes at work, sometimes in the spirit center, and anyway. But normally what we do, when you get a difficult relationship, you want to run away. Oh, now that we know, okay, if you have someone difficult, okay, maybe God will see a little bit. It's giving you opportunity to grow under that circumstance. And how am I going to develop a patience if I don't have it? I will not. When everything is smooth, everything's happening the way that we want, that we plan, are we developing virtues? If we do, very little. We get through a very difficult time that all of us go through. That's different. But look at the difference here. Look at this, this statement that the friendly spirits mentioned to us. Now, the question, we're not going to read it all of them, but I make question 115 of the Spirit's book. It's so important, this question, because that question answers a lot of questions that we have in terms of our goal and how to achieve our goal. Here, the Spirit, in our own words, makes that when we start, simple and equal, we start right, and tell us our destiny, our goal is to become a perfect spirit. We're going to acquire all the virtues. And when we get there, we're going to feel, the truly happiness in our heart. We're going to be close to God. Just that feels good. But that's our destiny. That's where we're going to be. And then he also mentioned how to get there. He says that in order for us to achieve perfection, we need to acquire the knowledge. Okay, but now how are we going to acquire the knowledge? We're going to acquire the knowledge through those struggles, those trials that we're going to go through. So those trials, that's the one that's going to help us. But when the struggles come, we have a tendency to do what? Run, 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 run. But it's right here. Knowledge by experience, the trials that God has imposed on them. So, developing virtues requires work. Requires difficulty. It's part of the law. But he mentioned here, we have two ways when you go through a trial. We can humbly accept the trials. Humbly. That's like these two other virtues that we're talking about, is make it and read. It's important because if I develop them, when the trial comes, more likely can now be humble to accept that trial, not when trying to kill the other person, but really exercise the patience, really exercise the love towards them from the heart. Now I know. And there are two more virtues that we're going to see down the road that's going to help it to really, when we accept the trials. And the other way we, I don't like it, I don't want it, that's when we do what? We start to complain. So when we complain, what happens? We go through the pain when we don't acquire the knowledge. And then we need to go back at it as many times as necessary until we learn the virtue. Are you listening, Marcelo? Yes, I'm listening to you. So it's important for us. So Johnny Jensen, she mentions that high spirits, when they go through those trials, they look at it as an opportunity for growth. They don't shake it up. No. He knows, okay, God now gave me a trial and this opportunity for me for growth. Lower spirits, what they do? They complain. And then as we get a little more mature, and then we see it's part of the life. Things will gonna happen. God is going to put a little trials in front of you. But now see, okay, I'm getting to the trial. And we can feel it. If you really pay attention in our feeling, get to know more yourself, when the trial is coming, you can feel it. It's almost like, okay, get ready. Get ready, because you're going to exercise virtues. So that's a very important point that I was really wanted to stress here. And and here's the other two virtues that help us on this process is obedience and resignation. Jesus' doctrine teaches obedience and resignation everywhere, but quite vigorous companion virtues of meekness. So you see other virtues that comes together with meekness. Though people mistakenly confuse them with the negation of feelings and will. Very different. Obedience is consent of reason. Resignation is the consent of the heart. So when we mention about, get to know about the nature laws, you know, to obey it, to be obedience, is consent of reason. We get to know the nature laws, and by reason, okay, I'm going to obey the law, because only when I obey the law, that's where I'm going to achieve the happiness. Every time that I go against it, I'm departing of happiness. So the reason tells us. So now I'm going to obey. I'm going to follow the nature laws. The second one, resignation. Is it easy? Doesn't come a pain inside. I don't know if you just saw me, but does it happen in your heart too? It happens. So now, instead of it to complain, now we're going to get inside of my lab to work the things. To work to the resignation. So now, working here and work in my heart. This exercise, I'm developing intellectual and moral. So that's why there are a lot of work. So people say, oh, obedience, that means negation of feeling and you will. No. There are much more work inside than outside. But there's a difference out there. There's one difference that I can obey, but internally, complaining, the mind gets all over the place, kind of get in this cycle, and this thinking doesn't come out of my mind, and complain about the other person. Am I obeying? I could be quiet outside, but internally I'm burning out. It's not what Jesus is saying. He's saying the work to quiet our mind, quiet our heart, but working with God, with reasoning, reflecting. That's why the importance of the prayer, the meditation, because that helps us to quiet our mind, to work in our heart. And doing so, you see, everything that we're talking about here does not depend on the other. I can be kind with others. But if the other doesn't play back, that's okay. Okay, in terms that I'm doing my part. I don't have control of the other. I do have control of my decision. Now it's my hand. And now, we're going to bring a story. It's a story, it really touches my heart. Why? Because this story, it's in the book Action and Reaction. And the chapter 16, mitigated that. This story touches my heart because first it showed the law of cause and effect. And one part of the life, a person that we're going to see here, he disregarded the nature. The peacemaker, meek, was far away from what he was doing. And then he changed. Now following these virtues that we're talking about here and how he turned to be. And it's the person, sometimes we're talking about, high spirits that do some transformation and some. Now you will see that maybe just like us. But he was able to make a big change in his life. So we're going to go through here. I think we're in a good time for us to go through the entire story. Of course, we're not going to go deep. I highly recommend to read about the story. There are a lot of good tips how to improve ourselves. So we're going to talk, I know this, I'm going to just organize the thoughts here because it goes so many different time frames, just make sure that we don't get lost. We're going to talk about the present life, and then we're going to go to the previous incarnation, and then what happened after this person, passed away, what happened in the spirit realm, and then we're going to come back to the present incarnation. So we're going to go a quick cycle. And we have Andrea Luiz and Eli. So these two, let's call two students, that they're going to different sites to learn. And as they learn, they share what they learned with us here. And we have, in this case here, we have Silas, that was his instructor, and he worked, Silas, and the translation was Nation of Peace. It's an institution of the spirit realm that their goals, that their objective is to rescue people in a difficult situation here on earth, rescue them, take care of them, prepare them to reincarnate again. So it's very close to this place, the spirit realm is very close to earth. So they work with difficult sorrows, like people that have a lot of difficulties, of hatred or very painful. So they come to this hospital to help them to get back to earth again and continue the journey. So we have Druzu. Druzu is the director of this place. He's the highest elevated spirit, and he's the coordinates all of this institution. And then we have Adelino. That's the person that we're going to learn from. What to do and what not to do. So all the story. So Andrea Luiz in life was brought into through Silas to get to know him, so they can learn about the law of cause and effect. So we're going to see the cause and effect when we meet, when a peacemaker, and the cause and effect, because the law is going to play. If a good cause, it's a good effect. It's a bad cause, it's a bad effect. It's a law. So we'll see on both sides. And Leontina, it's Adelina's mother. Okay, so first we'll just quickly just to understand the team that's working. So we start the story on the Spirit Center, just like we are here right now. And there we have we have Andrea Luiz, we have Silas, and we have Eli. Andrea Luiz, Eli, and Silas. And they came to look at Adelino, how Adelino was doing. And then Andrea Luiz started to describe what he was seeing as he got inside the Spirit Center. He said, he was, Adelino, a wonderful speaker, and caused the tears to fall as he touched the enormous fibers of our sentiment, simplicity, trust. He showed that he was a worker undergoing difficulty, circumstances. And in the book, when we start to read, you can see that Andrea Luiz, he really quickly connected with Adelino, because when he was talking about Jesus, when he talks about the gospel, and then wow. And Adelino also was showing some difficulties. Now, Andrea Luiz will notice, but he's, on the same time, he touched people's heart, but also seems to be he's going through some struggles. A large part of his exposed skin was covered with eczema. So, his face, arms, they have eczema. And it was burning. And that's why also was, that was part of his difficulties. And moreover, shy and sad. He seems to harbor anger, hidden torments. His admirably lucid eyes, however, bore the mark of humility. So he didn't want to show to everyone he was suffering, but everyone can look at him. He see in his eyes humble lucidity, the way that he was talking, the way he was teaching, and inside of him, his suffering, his quiet. And it was interesting when I started to read. He was connected, very well connected, well love for the incarnated one and disincarnated one. The people in the spirit realm that know him, and when saw Silas there, and they all know that Silas, is elevated spirit, he would come to Silas, please, in my words, he was not that way as in the book, but he would come, please help him. He's doing his best, but as his eczema it's bothering him. And then Silas said, yes, we know the effort that he's putting in, and yes, he's going to be cured by those eczema. And then comes another person. Says, oh, please help him. He's financially broken. Help him. And by the way, my mom, there's spirits in the spirit realm, okay? So he comes to Silas for help him financially because my mom, that's incarnated, needed some money to pay treatment from my brother that's still incarnated, and she didn't have it, but he's the one who barely had money, but whatever he had, he gave to my mom. My mom afford the treatment of my brother. And then I was reading and saying, you see how many people were asking for help, so somebody else could help him through the struggle he was going, and he was not complaining. He is quiet, going through tough time, but no complaint. So that was touching everybody's hearts there. And then, after they finished in the spirit realm, and then Silas and Elijah followed him to his house to continue to study about the case, because now Silas didn't mention everything. That's what Silas told him at this point. So André Luis and Elijah was like a lot of questions inside of him. So they got home at Adelino's home. So as they go in, and then Silas started to present, the people that was inside the house. And the first set was his mom. This is our sister Leontina. It's Adelino's mother. The loving mother and friend watching over Adelino during this. And then they noticed, well, his mom is an elevated spirit that came in to get with him, to help him. He came with a spirit that has already some strength, virtual strength. And they were observing the whole situation. And then André Luis asked Silas, is he married? And then, yes, he's married. But his wife left 6 years ago. And he stated, she didn't understand his heart. She left because she didn't understand his heart. So you could see how much love that he's going through difficulties. She left. Yes, our brother is married, but his wife isn't there. And then they started walking inside the house and get to the bedroom. And then Silas showed, this is Marisa, Adelino's daughter. And then André was, wow, he has a daughter. The wife left, so he's treating alone. He's taking care alone, of course, with his mother. But he would see that, wow, there are a lot of things here happening. But he's quiet. He wouldn't say anything to Silas, but in his mind, he knew what's going on. And then Silas continued walking in and showed. And these little ones, Mario and Raul, two waves, that's called waves, that Adelino adopt as a sons of his heart. So he adopted two children, and they mentioned that as African skin. So he had one, he adopted the other two. So he has all the skins burned. He's left, just with the mother. So we can see a lot of difficulties going on, and no complaint. And then André Luiz and Eli say, Silas, can you tell me more about it? Because how are they going such a difficult time, such a good heart, and going such a good difficulties? And then Silas put both together, and now he's going to talk about Adelino's past. Okay, let's go back there. And then here we have Martin Gaspar. He is Martin's video. You need to be careful, both has the same name, but the filho one, that's Adelino. And the first one, Martin Gaspar, that was his father. And then we have Emilia, we have Antonio, and Lucio. And then André Luiz described a little bit about his father, Martin Gaspar. He mentioned just some points of him. Adelino's father, 43 years old, farmer, very wealthy man, tyrannical, very pride. He sexually molested the slaves, girls, and what he stood, if he got married or if he got pregnant, he would sell, and has the baby, of course, he would sell the baby and the mom because the baby crying was upsetting him. So he would sell both of them. And then he was hated by the majority of the slaves. So in type of person, they have a very different relationship with every one of them. On the farm, the place that he used to be. But interesting, he has no tenderness and devotion were boundless with Adelino. Somehow these two was the best friend. And Adelino came from, he had a relationship with a slave. So Adelino was born. Adelino's mother died there when he was born. And Martin, his father, really took care of him. Was brought people from the city to teach him, to educate him. They always together, working together, studying together. This relationship was phenomenal, very engaged. Now, the story that happened. So Martin, the father, decided to go to the big city, and he found and got in love with Maria Emilia. And that's not my words, no, that's took right from the book. It said, unresponsible, 20 years old. So let me just make sure it was not me. It was André Luiz who wrote that. And then what happened is Adelino developed a strange fascination for her. And she felt the same way. So what happened is Adelino used to consider himself his father's best friend, but now began to hate him. So look at the picture. So the father got married with 24 years old. They came to the farm. Now Adelino was living there. So now started to develop a relationship with his mother, stepmother, I guess. This relationship, and now Adelino doesn't like his father anymore. Now he wanted to do everything for the father go away so he can be with Maria Emilia. And then Adelino thought that he planned a terrible crime to murder his father together with Emilia and Lúcio. So 4 of them got together and planned to kill him. So they can be together, they could have the life they were planning. And they did. It's very difficult moment because the father got sick, he stayed on bed, and then they prepared something for him to drink, and he drank, and he fell asleep, and then they put some liquid in the room and put fire to simulate it. That was the incident, the house was. So he died, burned. So it's very difficult moment. And then they thought, okay, now that he's out, let's go to Europe and leave the world. And now we have the money, because the father had a lot of money. He didn't have the father anymore. Let's leave. Let's forget about what happened. Let's enjoy. But can we tell our conscience to sleep that nothing happened? Our conscience, because part of the nature laws, will constantly going to be telling you, you need to repair this. You need to repair. And guess what? During 5 years, he ended up by himself because he started to this feeling that he was burning himself, because the guilty other sentiments start to come up. So even though they're trying to go far away, but didn't resolve the issue and bring it to ourselves. Sometimes doesn't mean that we're going to go away, and we're going to go so far away that everything else happened, we're going to be forgotten. No, we find this working stuff. So, didn't work. So, what happened is he passed away. He suffered the obsession. Now, of course, when he was incarnated, the father now, that was the spirit realm, started to obsess him. That's why he increased, because he felt guilty. Now the father now had all these anchors to really, go against him, and then he got sick and he died, as Adelino died. So what happened is, as he's incarnated, he really suffered, and he was brought to, when he died, of course, the spirit realm. So let's see what happened in the spirit realm. Martin Gaspar, the father, was waiting for him at the grave and dragged him down into infernal darkness. And he stayed there for 11 years. Not only the father, but also other spirits that didn't like him too, because part of his farm, part of things that he was done in the past. Completely far away from being weak, being peacemaker. Very far away. And we can see some results. A lot of humiliation, as I mentioned, 11 years. Until one day, after 11 years suffering there, until one day, supported by Jesus' message, he was brought to the Institute, the nation of peace, in a deplorable state. So now, I think when the right time comes, they were able to come, those workers from this institution, Mission of Peace, and rescued him, and took him to this institution. And then we start to discuss, Silas was telling him, André Luiz telling us, a lot of treatment he went through. It was not an easy job even for them out there. A lot of work. And there, he mentioned some techniques that can help us to wake up, to really help ourselves. But look at these interesting things that André Luiz mentioned. Adelino once improved. When his conscience opens it up, he dedicated himself to the hardest work in our organization, winning over time, noteworthy merits that enable him to return to the human sphere with the right to begin paying off the enormous debt he had recklessly taken on. And when you continue to read, it's more like this. As he wakes up, look at what he has done, he consciously says, okay, I'm going to repair it as quick as possible. All the work in this organization that nobody wants to do, he was the one. I'll do it. I will do it. It's not to show off, it's nothing. The kindness just to be, no. Because he consciously knew that he did something wrong. And the only way now to repair is through work. And the way he was conducting his life, if even the spirit realm was touching people's heart. Right in the beginning when you mentioned about Jerusalem, that's the director, he touched his heart. The way that he was working in the spirit realm. So on a short period of time, he was back on earth. He reincarnated again. So that's what we described a little bit in the beginning. So now we understand what happened in the previous life, why the law was in effect, why he was going through those difficulties. No complaints. Even the spirit realm, and even he incarnated, no complaints. And then coming back to the present incarnation. And then again, there are André Luiz, Silas, and Elijah still talking at Adelina's house. So Adelina, Silas will just explain everything what happened in the previous life. And then Silas just quickly gave a quick overview what he was doing, so for us can learn and bring it to our life. He said he was cultivating prayers with renewal of his inner self, active and ardent religious faith, uplifting study and pure charity, great sympathy for incarnated and disincarnated, as I mentioned before, people in both realms like him so much. Immense material difficulties because in the previous lives he was rich, but he didn't do the right things with the money piece. He was orphan of father. He had a good father before who loved him, and he didn't treat him well. So now he comes orphan of father. He struggled constantly against extreme poverty and chronic bad health. He was led to a spirit center when he was still very young, so quickly he could remember what he was studying the spirit realm, so he could continue his faith, his belief. He really accepted the responsibility of living and sought, above all, apply to himself in the regenerative principles of the faith he had embraced. So he was not only the one who was just talking about it, he was applying in his life everything that he was learning, applying sincerely in his life. And then Silas mentioned this phrase, which is very important, because now we're going to understand why he's working so hard and things seems changing in his life. However, due to the merit he has accumulated by devoting himself to the good of others, he is redeeming his past with as much relief as possible, gaining time and acquiring new blessings. And Eli was, I can see that why much relief, because he's doing so good now, good cause, good effect. Right? Before, bad cause, bad effect. So he could get a lot of relief. That's why this eczema was much less than burn than what happened before. Now it's an eczema that Silas mentioned in the beginning. He would go away then too. So we understand the law, plain. But then I didn't understand about this gaining time. What's that? How we can gain time? That piece I don't understand. And then Silas started to explain. Because he's been working so hard in himself, being responsible, developing the virtues, being kind, affability. And he started to describe so many things that was working hard to develop in himself. And the law is working, so he attracted who to his life? Her daughter was her relationship in the past, was the 24 years old that he got married. It's hard even to say, but that's the one who married his father, and he had a relationship with her. Now he received her as a daughter, and he said because now through his example, she would be able to have a high chance now to change herself because he has changed. So he was capable now to receive her. So because of his behavior, he attracts her for being his daughter. And he's treating her well. And then they looking at Silas, and Silas continues. He said, Mario and Raul, this two that was his partner of killing the father, now is Antônio e Lúcio. So again, because he was responsible, he attracts the other two and he's adopted. He has the courage to adopt these two. He could, on the time that would come, he would say just no, I don't want it, and he could. He had the free will. But he said, yes, I'm going to adopt these two. And then he was, this buying time or gaining time, that means instead of to wait so many reincarnations, paid the debts that he acquired in the past in one incarnation. He was able to gain a lot of speed. So bring it to us now. It's important. When a struggle comes in our life, we say, thank God for these struggles. I'm listening to you. Okay? I'm telling you, look in your eyes, but also look in myself. It's important. We should say thank you. Because if things come in our life, because now we already have responsibility, we already have ability to deal with that difficulty. And then both of them, André Luiz and Eladio was looking at Silas, so wow. And both of them, okay, so what happened with him? He didn't want to say, but he got to the point that André Luiz asked, so, okay, what happened with him? And then Silas stopped and said, we still don't know exactly the words, but like we're not ready to talk about him right now. We need to go back to the spirit realm. Okay, both accept. Now both of them go to the spirit realm. Three of them go back to the spirit realm. They left from Adelino's house and goes to the spirit realm. And then on the following day, around 2 o'clock in the night, in our local time, Druso, the director of that institution, called all of them to go for a trip so they could continue learning. André Luiz, Silas, and Eladio, they didn't even know from where they are going to. So they moved from the spirit realm, and then André Luiz, that when he got on earth, he recognized the house of Adelino, or Adelino's house they were just arrived. And then nobody asking anything, but Druso seems to be that so elevated, so this kind of easy communication, even for André Luiz, was not that easy, it was explained, the level of respect. And they arrived, and as all of them, Druso, Silas, André Luiz, Hilario, got inside the house or in, to go inside, we could see around his house was protected, the spirits, because Druso recognized one of them, and we could see that his house was protected. So just one open, we never know. So they got inside the house, all of them, and Adelino was asleep, or just fall asleep, and then his spirit was detaching from the body, and now André is describing Adelino here, and Druso. And Druso saw him, gave him a hug, and Adelino cries, and then Druso put his hand over his head. Druso feel this compassion, and he tells Adelino, the time has come. And then now both are. And then Druso opened a prayer that touched everybody. André Luiz mentioned that's the beautiful moment that happened at that time. And then after he finished the prayer, Druso was giving hope, giving energy, giving everything he could to Adelino to embrace the challenge. Adelino now goes back to the body because he heard a crying noise outside. He leaves the room, opens the door. When he opens the door, what he sees, a newborn in front of his house. And then let me describe that he inclined to get the baby, and Druso comes to his side and tells him, that's your father. He comes back to you. He didn't hear from the body, from the hear of the soul. Right inside his heart. And Adelino feeling that, bring the child to his chest and said, my son, my son. And then Luis described that moment. What's so beautiful. So beautiful. Even Druso itself got touched. And in our own words say, I wish we all can do this type of attitude when we are nursed going through a trauma. And then Luis finished and said nobody was saying anything. It was quiet. But that moment that touched everybody's hearts. And that story for us to bring to ourselves, for many things. We're talking about being peacemakers, to being humble, to being meek, because that pays out in our benefit. And that's what I bring it to my heart, and to share it with you, so we can continue to embrace those virtues in our life. Thank you so much for your